When a house accidentally caught fire, the family dog had to think fast to save the baby's life. What happened next is truly shocking. Hello friend, if you enjoy this story, please subscribe and like the video for more amazing stories. Lillian and Stephen were a couple much like any other. They had many of the same passions and interests, which made them the perfect match. One of their shared passions was animals, and specifically dogs. That's why, not long after they moved in together, they bought a dog. It was a large boxer that they called Beanie. It might have started off small, but it soon grew and became very well built and strong. Beanie might have looked tough and like he'd win any fight he got into, but the truth was that he was the softest and most loving dog Stephen and Lillian could have ever hoped for. The dog became the first member in what was to become their new family, but he wasn't going to be the last. In the middle of March that year, Lillian discovered that she was pregnant. She and Stephen had not been planning on having a baby, but they welcomed the news with excitement. They couldn't wait to give Beanie a friend to grow up with. The pregnancy went smoothly, and in January of the next year, she gave birth to a happy and healthy young boy that they called Stuart. Both Stephen and Lillian turned out to be great, loving and wise parents, who would do anything for their little boy. Throughout the year, Stuart developed quickly and was soon sitting up and even crawling and trying to walk. And through it all, Beanie was there as his best friend and sidekick. In fact, the two never parted. Their friendship was cute and adorable, but it was also the thing that saved the boy from certain death less than a year later. It was their very first Christmas with Stuart, and Stephen and Lillian really wanted to make it special. They were going to spend the day together as a family, opening gifts, playing games and eating food. Sure, Stuart may still have been too young to truly appreciate it all, but it was still a special day, and a magical moment that would live on in the memories of Stephen and Lillian for the rest of their lives. Even Beanie was getting in on the action, wearing a Santa outfit that Lillian had bought online. The amount of gifts that people had bought Stuart was actually ridiculous, but no one could deny that it was a fantastic day. Beanie ran around playing with the wrapping paper, sending it flying in all directions as his family watched on and laughed. Eventually they all got hungry and had a wonderful homemade turkey dinner, topped off with champagne for Stephen and Lillian, fruit juice for Stuart, and a nice cooling bowl of water for Beanie, who had long since shrugged off the Santa outfit. After eating, Stephen picked Stuart up and placed him in his bed. It had been a long, busy, and exciting day for the little boy. At just less than a year old, he would have no doubt been absolutely shattered, so it came as no surprise that Stuart was fast asleep before Stephen even reached the bedroom door. His dad opened the window a little to let the stuffy air out and placed the baby inside his cart. As he left the room, Beanie came strolling in and immediately leapt up onto the bedside table and into Stuart's little bed. He curled up at his feet and fell to sleep too. Stephen smiled and walked away, leaving the door slightly ajar just in case the dog wanted to leave. Stephen went downstairs and helped Lillian tidy up before telling his wife that he was going to go and drop off a few gifts at his brother's house on the other side of town. Lillian kissed him goodbye and told him not to be long. She then went to the couch and laid down in front of the TV. Before too long, her eyes started getting heavy and she too drifted off to sleep. She didn't know that disaster was about to strike. Something potentially horrific was about to happen. While tidying the kitchen, neither Lillian nor Stephen had noticed one of the hobs on the oven was still on. A stray cloth had fallen onto the hob and started smoldering, before bursting into flames. Within moments, the fire had spread and much of the kitchen was in flames. It soon filled the room and reached the adjoining ones, burning all that was in its way. The fire really did spread quickly. There was plenty of wrapping paper and other flammable substances around the house, and it essentially burnt like a tinderbox, quickly and intensely. Smoke started to blow into the front room where Lillian was sleeping, and the thick black curtain soon awoke her. Immediately, she panicked and remembered that Stuart was upstairs in his crib. She jumped up and ran towards the stairs, shielding her nose and mouth from the smoke as she ran. But the intense fire had taken over the bottom of the stairs, and passing through it would have been impossible. The fire roared and Lillian had no choice but to flee from the house, terrified about whether Stuart was still alive or not. But what she didn't know was that as soon as Beanie the dog had smelled the smoke, he had leapt into action. Beanie had pushed the bedroom door closed to try to stop the smoke coming into the room and then leapt up at the window, shoving his head into the small open gap. Using his head, he had pushed it wide open. It had taken a lot of strength, but eventually Beanie had the window open wide enough for him to get through. Luckily, there was a roof not far below the window and beyond that, soft bushes that he could jump into. Beanie had taken a big breath of cool night air and turned around, running back over to Stuart's cart. He had leapt in and grabbed the baby by the scruff of his pajamas, lifting him up with all of his might and slowly carrying him across the room. In only a matter of moments, the raging flames outside the bedroom door would burn through and set all the plastic toys on fire. So Beanie had lifted the crying baby up and kept hold of him as he climbed out of the window and lowered himself down to the bushes below as softly as he could. Both Stuart and Beanie got a few cuts and bruises, but their small injuries were preferable to remaining in the house and facing the fire. From the front of the house, Beanie could hear Lillian's frantic screaming, but the protective dog continued carrying Stuart down the garden and away from the fire. But that's when he did something shocking and completely unexpected. Still carrying the crying baby in his jaws, Beanie walked out into the middle of the road with him and laid him down directly in the line of where cars would come hurtling by. Why had he done such a thing? Well, it was actually quite a clever move on the dog's part. You see, he knew that the fire engine would come from that direction, and when it came it would see him and the baby in the road and stop and help them. It was a risky plan, but Beanie instinctively knew he had to protect and save Stuart, and just as if it had been planned, the sound of a distant fire truck quickly came closer and closer until it came roaring into view. Beanie nervously paced around a crying Stuart and hoped the fire truck would see them in the road. Thankfully it did, and it screeched to a halt. 2 firefighters jumped out of the cab to assist the dog and the baby while the rest of the crew ran to tackle the fire. By that point the house was a blazing shell and no one would have survived it. Thankfully though, save for minor injuries sustained during the escape, both Stuart and Beanie were absolutely fine. The firefighter carried the young boy around the side of the flaming house to his hysterical mother. Lillian was beside herself in fear that her baby boy was trapped in the house, as was Stephen, who had sped back as soon as he heard what was going on, but the look of relief on their faces when they saw their son was heartwarming. The firefighter explained that Beanie had saved the boy all by himself, and they immediately rushed to hug him in gratitude. The family would never be able to repay the dog for saving Stuart's life, but Beanie didn't mind. He was just happy that his family was happy, and that's what made him the cutest boy of all. Have you ever heard of such a heroic dog before? And what do you think about this story? Thank you for watching this video, and if you enjoyed this story, please don't forget to like and subscribe for more.